Hey guys, Lee Bratcher. I'm the president of the Texas Blockchain Council. We are here in the Texas Capitol over this consensus week, interviewing thought leaders and business executives, policy experts. We're privileged to have Kristen Smith of the Blockchain Association, executive director of the Blockchain Association, with us this afternoon. Kristen, thanks for being here.
It's wonderful to be here, Lee. This is a beautiful state and excited to be in town.
Well, we're glad that the crypto universe has descended upon Texas. That's what we've been asking for many years.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. We've got myriads of events to get to and things to talk about, but let's talk about the policy stuff for a minute. The bill that dropped this week, Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lummus, bipartisan bill, a lot packed in it. Let's get your thoughts on the Minimis Exemption, the SEC versus CFTC, and then we'll go into some of the other components, but those two specifically at first.
Yeah, no, it's a really timely topic. I think at the federal level, there's been a lot of education, a lot of proposals, particularly from the House side, that have been introduced. But the fact that we have a bipartisan pair of senators that have put forth such a comprehensive effort, I really think is a pivotal moment, and it's going to kick off a much higher and deeper level of debate than we've ever seen. The bill that was circulated this week and introduced this week covers many topics. I think the most important one is that it picks the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, to be the regulator for crypto spot exchanges. This is a little bit different than earlier drafts of the bill, but I think there seems to be this idea that the CFTC is better suited than the SEC for this type of regulation. I do think there's some changes that need to be made to that section, but the overall structure is strong and something that I think can be workable going forward. As you mentioned, the de minimis exemption is also in there, and this would really sort of try to put crypto transactions on par with the way we deal with foreign currencies. So if you get some euros on day one and 8 days later you're in Paris and you spend those, you don't have to worry about calculating capital gains for, in order to buy your lunch. And so this similarly would help out with small retail crypto transactions, but also things like gas fees and whatnot. The other piece that I thought was exciting in that bill related to the tax front were several provisions that clean up the broker definition
from the infrastructure
bill for what types of entities need to do information reporting to the IRS come tax season. So that's another exciting part that we were happy to see included in there.
Good. I tend to agree. CFTC makes a little more sense. Bitcoin and crypto generally, but specifically Bitcoin and Ethereum, are almost commodities. There's quasi like currency commodity that doesn't fit in any of the buckets.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't a security.
Yes, no, definitely not a security. There's not a single sort of uniform entity that's dictating the future. I don't know there's no Bitcoin corporation to file with the SEC.
Right.
Ethereum is incredibly decentralized and has so many actors involved that, they really, really do function more like commodities. And I think they should be, I want to say regulated as such, but, the reality is most spot markets don't have regulation, right? I mean, if you're going to buy wheat, you don't have to go through a federally regulated market. So this really would be very different. But the CFTC does regulate commodity futures, and they do have oversight over the spot market when it comes to anti-fraud and anti-manipulation. And so they do have some experience there, and I think it's very natural to build upon that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you brought up the example of wheat, it made me think about the tax implications specifically for, certain, I don't know, maybe staking but what comes to mind is Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
Taxed at point of receiving the block reward, and then again with the capital gains when you dispose. Wouldn't it make more sense to just tax that as income at point of
I think it does. Yeah. No, I think if you look across the federal agencies, the IRS is probably the furthest behind of any agency out there. I think if you look at other Treasury Department divisions like the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or OFAC, there are very good policies in place to deal with illicit finance concerns. Like that is very established. There are compliance programs that companies have implemented in order to meet their obligations. That seems to be working very well. But yeah, there's a lot of different issues that need interpretation. It's interesting actually with the IRS, a lot of times we do want parity more with securities. It's very different than on the market side or the disclosure side, but there is a lot of cleanup to do, and I think it would be really great to get some folks on the Senate Finance Committee or the House Ways and Means Committee to get involved, and hopefully the bill that Senators Lummus and Gillibrand introduced will help to spur those kinds of debates.
Yeah, for sure. Now there was a line in there about future study of proof of work and the energy consumption. And the thing that we continue to talk about, and when we partner with states that perhaps maybe have a Democratic lean, Texas is purple but leans red, we are try to impress upon them the importance of Bitcoin mining for the incentivization of wind and solar.
Yes.
And in Texas, you see massive overbuild of wind and solar, and these developers are losing tons of money because of grid congestion, the intermittency problems, and they're turning to Bitcoin miners as a way to change the economics of the industry. And it's changing. I mean, there's 20 gigawatts of solar alone in the interconnection queue in ERCOT. That's like a third of our grid.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the story of what's happening in Texas and the co-location of, renewable energy with Bitcoin mining is a wonderful one, and one we need to tell more. There is a section in the bill that does call for a study. Interestingly, the Office of Science Technology Policy also had a study in the executive order. And, I think what policymakers, I don't know if it's like that here in Texas, but at the federal level, they often do studies when they don't know what to do. And so it's my hope that this will be an opportunity to educate policymakers in Washington about what's going on around the country. I mean, we've been fighting an unfortunate battle in New York lately because there's an effort there to push Bitcoin mining out of the state of New York. And there's been a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of education that needs to be done. And so hopefully this will be a positive development. But I think the fact that they put a study in is a nod to, the reality that this is an issue that comes up, but shows that there's no immediate course of action that they're desiring to take. So not necessarily a terrible place to be.
Yeah, I agree. It gives us more time to gather data.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we're talking about federal policy, how can state associations like the Texas Blockchain Council and many others come together to support the work that you guys are doing in DC?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Texas Association is probably one of the most sophisticated ones that we've dealt with from a federal level. I think that for us in DC, we've got a lot of problems we've got to deal with there. And outside of New York, we haven't had a concerted effort. So obviously always love to coordinate when we can on state level activity. But I do think there are so many relationships that state associations have that are beyond, the state government level. I mean, you can have often a better and deeper insight into who is building in the crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin space, who is motivated to, participate in these policy discussions. If we can leverage that local expertise and use it for, the Texas congressional delegation or with the Texas senators, I think that that's a real opportunity, and one that I think as we're both building out our infrastructure and the people that are involved, we can be able to have the bandwidth to do more of that coordination, because I do think, if you look across all of the states, I think everyone has very similar goals within the industry, right? We want to get good, sound policy so we can go off and build and innovate and do the things we want to do. And so, I think the coordination that's happening is really quite remarkable. I know you've been leading in that space for a long time, and but yes, I think we need to figure out how to translate that local power to the federal level.
Mm-hmm. And we're grateful to you for lending Dan Spooler and Ron Hammond to these meetings.
They love it. They love it. They know everything that's going on at the state level, and they're my first people I go to get those answers internally. So
that's wonderful. What's on the horizon for you guys? Obviously, ushering a bill through committees that has an uphill battle.
Yeah.
How does that? I mean, what's the strategy here? I mean,
it's a long-term strategy. I think right now we are still in the education phase and the idea generation phase, but I do think the bipartisan Senate bill does give us a new momentum. And so a lot of what we're doing right now is working through the details of the bill and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. We're certainly incredibly excited to see it introduced, but we really need to take a deep dive as an industry to make sure anything that moves forward is something that actually is workable and makes sense for the technology. So I think that it's really going to be more in 2023 that we see real progress made. But I think, between now and the end of the year, our focus needs to be on the policy and the substance and making sure we get the details right. Because if we do that, I think there is a desire with both parties to really get something done. And I think that we might have a unique opportunity in the next Congress to actually get a good bipartisan piece of legislation enacted. That doesn't happen every day.
It doesn't. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Kristen, where can people go to find out more about you and the Blockchain Association?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, theblockchainassociation.org, or you can follow us on Twitter at blockchainassn, or my Twitter is at kmsmithdc.
Awesome. I know I follow you, and I'm sure many of our viewers do too. Thanks for being here for this conversation.
Thanks, Lee. This is great. Nice to see you.